Welcome to the weekly discussion of how the technology of today impacts the world of tomorrow. This is Fill in the Blank Podcast, and I'm Ross Strader, joined by my co-host Keith Abels, and we want you to join the conversation. You can reach out to us on Twitter at AskFITB, or you can email us at fitbpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, know that you're listening, where you're from in the world, and your thoughts about the topics that we discuss on Fill in the Blank. Keith, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's been a busy week. It's only Tuesday as we're recording right now, but it sure feels like it should be a lot later in the week than Tuesday.
It does feel like that. It does. It feels like we just did this yesterday.
It does.
Although it was a week ago. Just a lot been going on in the news. But before we get to there, how can folks join this journey with us?
Well, we encourage all of our listeners, new and the listeners that have been with us for a while, to support the show if you're willing and able at patreon.com/FITB. So Patreon allows you to support our show 100% on your terms, so you can contribute any amount that you want. You get to decide how much the Fill in the Blank podcast is worth to you. So our challenge to our listeners is to support us by contributing just $1 a month. That's our $1 challenge. It's only 3 cents a day. And that 3 cents a day or $1 a month gets you 4 to 5 full episodes per month. And that helps us grow our audience. It helps us upgrade our equipment, which is our next big step here at the Fill in the Blank podcast. So we certainly appreciate you listening. We appreciate everyone that has supported us so far. And we encourage you, if you're able to support us, the $1 challenge at patreon.com/FITB.
All right. Thanks, Keith. Hey, so there's a few things to follow up on. Our last episode, we talked about 2 things primarily. One is the Facebook implosion, debacle, downward spiral that Facebook is in, related to the information that came out with the Cambridge Analytica scandal. It was really, there's no other way to call it except a scandal, and the data mining that Cambridge Analytica was doing, but not just the data mining, what they did with the data once they mined it, and how, and the things we know about the Brexit election in Great Britain, the last 2 presidential elections. It seems that there was scandal involved with what Cambridge Analytica was doing, and at the time we recorded last, Facebook was largely silent. Particularly, Mark Zuckerberg had not come out and made a statement yet. But he just recently did.
He did, and I think it's all crap. But let me be specific with what the crap is. All right. So we're going to link to an Engadget article that says Mark Zuckerberg is sorry. And I think what it means is Mark Zuckerberg is sorry, in parentheses, he got caught.
Oh, I think definitely. I don't think there's any other way to read that.
So he spent the last week, he went on camera with CNN and Wired and the New York Times and Recode and did all of these interviews and pretty much said the same thing. And so I'll quote from the article on Engadget: "We let the community down and I feel really bad and I'm sorry about that." Anyway, that is kind of the same sentiment that he and therefore Facebook gives after every single one of these kinds of issues. And so it would be a lot more believable if I had not heard this from him countless times before. But, it's kind of more of the same. He also took out these full-page articles in all these publications. I know in the U.S., maybe in other countries as well, I'm not sure, but he's got these full-page ads. I didn't even read it because, I'll be honest with you, I don't care. One thing that does stand out from the interviews that he did, though, he does say in here, "I actually am not sure we shouldn't be regulated."
See, I think that's further evidence he's listening to this podcast, because that, my friend, is what you said almost verbatim last week.
That is exactly what we talked about. And although I am not a fan of a lot of government regulation in technology issues, mainly because our government doesn't know what the hell they're doing any day of the week. And then you add technology in there and I trust them even less. So in general, I'm not in favor of that. But they're just begging to be regulated at this point, right?
Yeah.
If they get regulated, I'm not going to blame that on a big overreaching government, I'm going to blame that on Facebook for being so bad at what they're supposed to be doing and forcing public opinion to drive the regulation, right? Because that's what would drive it. It's a public outcry thing that would force Congress or whomever to, even states could do it. I mean, you could do this state by state. We're seeing that with net neutrality now, with states starting to kind of enact their own potential laws to deal with that. So it's entirely possible this could be a state by state thing, which would be a really hard thing to do. But I mean, it's hard to say they don't have this coming.
No, well, this is the second kerfuffle, if you will, for Facebook, and the second one eclipses the first one. So the first one we talked about probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, when it seemed that Facebook in their benevolence was trying to preempt a lot of the bad press they were getting with regards to what shows up in a Facebook feed and that sort of thing. And so they were saying, hey, we're going to make changes on our algorithm. We're going to narrow that focus. This is going to be more focused on your family, your friends, your network, that sort of a thing. But we knew at that time they were just trying to preempt a lot of the bad press. And then that gets lost in what breaks with the Cambridge Analytica information that comes out. And now Facebook is full on their heels. And primarily the reason they are is because their stock is dropping. Money speaks, and not only is their stock dropping, but you have Facebook's community kind of rising up against it. In other platforms of social media, people are getting access to the data that Facebook has on them. And I think it was today or late last night, someone broke the story about, all these people posting the data that Facebook has on them on Twitter with a, very apocalyptic headline of, and this will terrify you to know.
People are downloading their Facebook data and posting it to Twitter, and the results will terrify you.
It almost sounds like the, a trailer to the Facebook movie.
I wish I had a more movie narrator voice because, that would sound really good.
Yeah, maybe Social Network 2.
Yeah, so you're referring to this article on Business Insider. We'll put a link in the show notes where people discovered they could request all of their Facebook data as a zip file, and now they're posting their results on Twitter. And man, if you go through some of these examples, it is creepy, creepy, creepy.
Yeah, so essentially what it tells you is that if at some point you downloaded Facebook and in the setup process, because you were hurrying to get on so you could post that picture, you, whether you knew it or not, gave Facebook essentially full access to everything on your phone. So the messages that you send, the people you call, the places that you go, and that data is, is analyzing itself inside, so it knows where you were, when you called somebody, everybody in your contacts, even if you've deleted them. They have a record of your entire contact, communication, travel history.
Yeah.
There's not anything Facebook doesn't know about you if you've been carrying your phone.
Yeah, so if I just kind of scroll through, number one, the commentary is funny. The subject is not. So, the way that people, it's Twitter, right? So people are kind of quirky and witty and such, so they're the way that some of this is worded is amusing, even though it's kind of terrifying. But so some of the examples here, they know how many times I've contacted every individual contact I've ever kept in my phone over the last few years. This includes people I'd forgotten about years ago. This includes calls and texts made through my cellular network, which has nothing to do with Facebook. So every call, every text. It doesn't have the contents of those, but it knows when every call was made, who the call was made to, what time, how long that call lasts, all that stuff, right? So every call and every message. And this is not, these are texts, these are not Facebook messages, right? This is not Facebook Messenger type messages. This is that. So it's storing all the mobile numbers in the address book, which, why? I don't know. But they do. So they have, all this stuff. It just, as I scroll through here, it's just bizarre. So it's okay. So I'm going on here. So there's one person here, Dylan McKay. I don't know Dylan McKay, but he's the example in this business, one of the examples in the Business Insider article. And it says, after creating a script to record statistics of his cell phone records, he found Facebook had records of over 700 distinct calls with data on whether these were incoming, outgoing, or missed, the duration of each call, 1,369 SMS messages with data on whether they were sent or received, both failed and drafted messages. And I mean, he actually posted his script on GitHub if anybody wants to go get that and try to run the script to do all this. But it's insane. So it says, but the amount of data Facebook has stored on you doesn't stop there, unfortunately. Recently, a news reporter checked out his own data. It included scanned copies of lease forms from previous rental property I must have sent to my buddies over Messenger, my current tenant ledger report, an old monthly billing statement for my home broadband, screenshots of banking transfers, and seemingly endless web pages of all the banal conversations I've ever had on the platform. So he wrote that in the New Zealand Herald. So, I mean, why? What the hell are they doing with this?
There's no telling. So, I mean, when you look at that, so, Facebook certainly was trying to pivot that this was Cambridge Analytica. They were gathering data that they said they were deleting and weren't keeping. But Facebook cannot pivot from this. This is data Facebook has been collecting, and not just through their app, but through every app that you have downloaded on your phone.
Yeah, well, this is what they do. The problem is if they admit, like we've overreached here. Well, they haven't, because this is exactly what they do. I scanned through their privacy policy, and it says they are doing everything that these people are saying they're doing, right? I mean, so it's not like, oh, well, we weren't thinking and we shouldn't have done this. They've been doing this for years. They did it very intentionally, deliberately, because their privacy policy says they're going to do it, and then they tell you sort of what they're going to do with the data, right? So you go through and it says, here's the stuff that we're going to collect. And then there's a section that says, what do we do with this, or how do we use this, something like that. And it says, we want to build engaging communities and blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't say specifically what they're going to do with it, which is crap.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine the power behind the algorithms that they use and how specific, they talk about micro-targeting, advertising, all of those things. And there's always been the big scandal. Hey, listen, you talk about something during the day, you text your friend with it, and then all of a sudden you see ads show up on your, and listen, it's not, Google's doing the same thing. I mean, this kind of opens the window into what these big tech companies, the power they have to gather the data, and that stuff doesn't go anywhere. So Apple says, hey, listen, you can delete your messages. It deletes them all across your, platforms if you want. And that's great for Apple to say that, except, there are apps that are storing that information, whether you want to keep it or not.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, Facebook gets your data, which then allows other, these third parties to capture that data. And then it's really kind of out there in the wild. And it just kind of spider webs from there, and who knows where this stuff actually resides. There's
okay. So
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so let me ask you two questions then. So Zuckerberg, he's saying, maybe we do need to be regulated. I think he has to say that. I don't think he has any choice, although I think that becomes a nightmare for them. So one, where do you think this goes in the future? Do you think there will be regulations upon data that tech companies can collect off individuals that use their services? Secondly, what do you think the future for Facebook is? I mean, how bad does this hurt Facebook 2 years down the road?
Well, okay, so I think the answer to the first question is it depends on the country. So in the U.S., I don't think much is going to happen to them. Zuckerberg said publicly, I'll testify in front of Congress if I'm called to, and that won't do anything.
Yeah.
We have hearings all the time that are just theater, right? I mean, it's just well, let's go on TV
Sure.
and let's, have a few senators yell at them.
And it gives everybody that's an elected official some platform to run on, but
Right. But there's no there's no
anything
action
happens.
as a result of that. Right. It
Right.
is activity without a result, which is pointless. It's all just theater. So that is likely to happen. Well, maybe not. We'll see. I don't know that you see much happen in the U.S. In Europe, that's another story altogether because they already don't trust American tech companies. So I think the probability is pretty high that you see some sort of serious regulation across Europe, if not country by country, because who knows what the future of what's going on over there, because each country kind of has their own issues right now, and it's going in different directions tech wise. But in general, Europeans are very untrusting of American tech companies for reasons just like this. So I think there's a high chance or a high likelihood that you'll see more activity in Europe than you will see in the U.S. To answer your second question, just in general, I don't think much happens to Facebook. And the reason for that is just because they're so damn big.
Yeah.
And let's say, they lose a few million customers. They're already seeing less engagement and kind of declining numbers. But at the scale they operate at, it's kind of insignificant. At that scale, it does matter, but not really.
Yeah.
So, they're kind of like Microsoft was there for a while, where they really weren't performing very well, and they seemed to make all the wrong decisions. Like at every potential major critical point in the decision-making process, they chose the wrong decision, and they did that for like a decade. But they were so big,
Yes.
and so many people used them for so much, and it would be such a hassle for people to stop using them and go find something new, that people just stuck with it, even though they didn't like it, and they complained about it. I think that's what Facebook is right now.
Well, they are. And if you think about it, so many companies, small businesses, local businesses, regional businesses, they have built, lots of their marketing strategy around Facebook ads because it does reach so many people. They can target who it reaches. And there's not another option out there like Facebook. And so those companies are still going to invest in those advertising dollars, which is how Facebook makes its money anyway. So I do think you're right. I think it would have to be more than a few million people pull off of Facebook. It would have to be something, end of the world for Facebook to go away, simply because there's not really a better option from a marketing standpoint for lots of businesses at the price point that they're able to, buy advertising, get their message out through Facebook.
I think now's a good time to revisit our discussion about Google+. Are you with me? You ready to go back?
I'm with you. Hey, listen, we're on there. The 8 of us are still waiting for the rest of the world to come over.
There are no other good options. Twitter is a great option, but it's not the same as Facebook. And that's what's appealing about it, right? It's a very stripped down kind of experience, and Twitter's got its own problems. But, I certainly prefer Twitter over Facebook any day of the week.
Yeah.
Again, they have their problems. They have issues they need to deal with, but not like Facebook has issues. But it doesn't have the reach that Facebook has. It doesn't have the tools that Facebook has. And the irony in this, and you mentioned advertisers, the power of Facebook advertising is that you can kind of micro target exactly the audience you're looking for. And that's fantastic for targeting, whether it's an ad for a product or a service, or if you're a local plumber, or you are a hairstylist or whatever, right?
Yeah, you sell baby clothes. You can advertise to moms.
It is such a good platform for that. The problem is, the reason it's so good is because it's got so much data on everybody. So it really is kind of a catch-22.
It is. Well, so last week we talked about, I think one of those articles mentioned that they have 40 to 50,000 points of data on every individual. And we kind of laughed at that last week and, what's our data? Well, here, people are finding out that's exactly true. The depth in which they can reach into your world and what you do, they know everything. They know everything.
So I think I'll just kind of close my part of this discussion out with this. I retweeted this last week, and it's from Ashley Vance. I don't know Ashley Vance. Ashley Vance apparently is an author, former writer for the New York Times, has a book out about Elon Musk. So I found this on Twitter, and I thought it was maybe the best stated little synopsis of Facebook and just what it's about. All right, so here's Ashley's tweet.
Okay.
Mark Zuckerberg has spent his entire adult life trying to rate and sell humans. He does this while preaching community building and openness so he can sell more ads. There's nothing authentic or trustworthy about this business, and there fundamentally can't be.
Wow.
I think that's the best I've ever heard anybody say it, and I 100% agree.
Well, I think that's a great analysis. All right, well, enough of Facebook. I'm tired of talking about them. I know if you're listening to this show, you're tired of listening about them. But we would want to know, hey, have you deleted your Facebook app? Have you made any changes in how you're using not just Facebook, but social media? I mean, I think we're moving into an age where we really have to believe consumer beware. If you're concerned about privacy, you're concerned about data, if for no other reason, you just don't think that's anybody's business. Are there things you're doing about it? We'd love to hear about it at fitbpodcast@gmail.com or shoot us a note on Twitter at AskFITB. So we'd love to hear from you there. All right, so that's not the only thing that happened today. This is Tuesday, the March 27th, the Big Apple event in Chicago. They held it in a public school there, and there was a lot of chatter and speculation about what Apple might reveal in this event. Were there going to be some new products? Where people going back and looking at the last several years, what they've done in a March event, and so that happened today. We knew it would be an education event because it was held at a public school. The venue dictated that. But Keith, your thoughts about the Big Apple event today? I know, right?
Okay, well, clearly I was not the audience for this.
Clearly.
But, this was an education event. Apple talked about their education initiatives, both hardware and software related. I do have 2 children in public schools, so I do have a vested interest here.
Sure.
My response is not necessarily like a bad one. It's not overly enthusiastic, but I think they did what they needed to do, and probably what they should have done a while back. And there's, a million articles you can go read about it now, but we're going to run down the 5 biggest announcements from the Apple education event as detailed by The Verge. We will link to this. So this gives us a good little just kind of checklist to go down. Shall we?
We shall, but before you say that, I haven't yet to see anyone comment that he came out looking a little bit like Mr. Rogers today. I mean, I was waiting for him to go on stage, sit on a chair, change his shoes. He didn't do that. I mean, but it was a very, it was not Silicon Valley. It was very kid-friendly, very, everybody was dressed down, dressed casual, approachable. I think that's one of the things to notice about how they framed the entire event.
Sure. And Tim Cook basically looks like me on any given day. What I mean is like he's got a pair of khakis on, a sweater over a button-down shirt.
Yeah.
So pretty much my winter wardrobe right
Looked
there.
like a Gap ad,
Kind of. It doesn't sound cool when you say it like that, though.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You dress really cool. That's
you're
right.
You're right. Whatever. Yeah. I've got the full-out dad wardrobe. All
right. So you're gonna walk us through the 5 things, and The Verge is playing for the home team here because it's a stretch to get 5 things out of this thing. But
it is.
Walk us
Technically,
through it.
They're not wrong, but let's walk through them. Okay, so the first and biggest one, hardware-wise, is an education iPad. And so what does that mean? It is an affordable, air quotes, affordable iPad with stylus support. So basically what they did was they took their existing 9.7-inch iPad, which they announced last year, that was $329. And they gave it Apple Pencil support, which is great. They upgraded the processor, which is also very nice. And then they lowered the price for schools down to $299. So you could buy one of these Ross for $329, which I think is a very good price for this, especially with pencil support. If you're an educator or if you're a student, then you can get it for $299. So that's a big deal. Oh, and by the way, if you need an Apple Pencil, it's still $99. But hang on, if you're a student or a teacher, you're going to get it at a very good deal of $10 off, $89. That is, if you can't hear the sarcasm coming through, then sorry, I'll try harder.
No,
but
it's the 10%. It's the 10% education discount. That's exactly what it is.
It is. You're exactly right. Yeah. So on both of them, right? I mean, so the hardware, yeah, the iPad's $300 instead of $330. There it is. There's your 10% discount, and the Apple Pencil is $10 cheaper. So if you're saying that these are kind of designed to be used together, which clearly they are, then you need to say your $300 iPad is really $400 if you have to get the pencil.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, so you're looking at the Verge article, and when if you're listening to this and you go to the link and you click on it, so Keith, they've got a picture of this iPad, which I don't know why they're not calling it an iPad Pro, because essentially that's what it is, unless this foreshadows there's something new coming out with the iPad Pro, and that'll make this look more like a school iPad. But when you're looking at the screen that they screenshot from Apple, and it's got the apps in the little bar down there, what do you notice about that?
In the dock?
Yeah, in the dock. What do you notice about the apps that they have in the picture in the dock?
Well, they have, let's see, Safari, they have iMessage, they have Microsoft Word. That's interesting.
It is. I don't know. So we'll talk about another update in a minute, but I'm surprised they don't have Pages there, since Pages is part of this whole educational suite they launched today, and they've got Microsoft Word instead.
Well, I didn't pick up on that, and they also have iCloud Drive opened on this screenshot, and inside iCloud Drive are some folders, and then there's a Word document in there. You see that one?
Yeah, I do.
So I think this may be one of their subtle nods to, we know you're using Microsoft stuff, and see how nice we can play with your Microsoft stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be what that is.
Yeah, that's got to be. That's got to be.
But I mean, this is a big deal. Even if you're not a student, I mean, this is a good iPad. This is an iPad that most people can afford. I kind of use the, whether it's the soccer mom or grandma, grandpa kind of example for, this is kind of the daily driver iPad for a lot of people. And at $329 with a better processor, that means that you'll get more life out of it. It will last you longer. And for the people that will use this, that could be a matter of a couple of years longer, which is a big deal. So at $329, better processor, pencil support for those that need it, I think this is a really good upgrade. I mean, they upgraded the hardware in significant ways and did not touch the price. I think that's a big win, whether you're a student or not.
That's right. And it comes with a Retina display. And here's the thing they said a couple of times, and so I'll get your thought about it. But as they talked about the Apple A10 Fusion chip, and so what that does to the hardware and the power that this iPad's going to have, a couple of different times they said this is more powerful than the Google Chrome that you can buy. And so this specifically in this education environment, they were making a play that this is a better investment for not just the individual, but for school districts than a Google Chrome.
Oh yeah, they hit Chromebook several times today, and it's clear that Apple is trying to play catch up here to Google Chromebooks, and just in the Google Classroom suite. Period. So their announcement today, as we'll get further into it in just a second, is hardware and software, and that's a big part of it. But we'll see if this works. I think it's still going to be kind of tough, as we'll probably get into, but they did mention Chromebooks by name multiple times throughout it. I watched most of this after the fact. They didn't stream it live, so I watched a replay of it not too long after it happened, and I did notice that. I kind of made note of how many times they mentioned Chromebooks.
All right, so speaking of hardware, not just the new iPad or the upgrade to the low-cost iPad, which is a great upgrade. We all have to agree with that. But part of the Verge's announcement of the top 5 things is a new stylus, but not made by Apple. It's a third-party stylus that Apple quickly talked about. They didn't give a lot of screen time to it, but certainly put this out as one of those things that's new with regard aimed at education. Let's say it that way. It's a new Logitech crayon stylus.
Yeah, so when you say they didn't spend much time on it, the slide was on the screen. If it was a full second, I would be surprised. But so it is the Logitech Crayon, $49. It is a stylus. I guess it's kind of like an Apple Pencil, but not. It doesn't really mention, anything specific that this does other than, look kind of playful and more something like, someone younger that would want to use. So it's a white. It's kind of hard to tell how big this thing actually is. I got to think it's going to be a lot smaller because it's called crayon, right? So, I feel like it looks like it would be bigger than a crayon, but who knows? But it's exactly what it looks like, a stylus, except it's got an orange tip and then a couple of orange kind of circles around the opposite end of it. And that's it. It says crayon has colorful orange bands that look a bit more playful than the original pencil stylus. And that's all we know. And it's $49. And so when your kid loses them, at least you're only losing a $50 thing instead of a $100 thing.
That's right. And to protect the iPad, Logitech offers this sort of kid-friendly, playground-friendly case with a keyboard designed to be rugged. And in fact, that's the word that Apple used, designed to be rugged.
Okay. So hang on. So you've got a 300 think school district budget here. And as I recall, you were a member of our local school board, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
All right. So
yes, I was.
I don't know if you ever had input or discussed kind of these sorts of things with the school district when you were part of that. But every parent can appreciate how tight budgets are. And as somebody that's actively participated on the school board, you know how tight everything is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So if you have a proposal for we need to upgrade hardware, okay, these things are $300 a piece. All right. So we need how many of those? You do the math. But then we need to take full advantage of it, $150 worth of accessories. So you're going to spend an additional 50% of the cost of the device on other accessories to kind of enhance your experience. Sarcastic air quotes being used there. So now you're at $450 all in, and that's a tough sell, man. Especially when you're looking at Chromebooks. I was scanning Chromebook prices earlier, just before the show, just to see it. Kind of average Chromebooks, a couple $100 all in, screen, keyboard, everything.
I know, and they're touch screens. So you're talking about $450, and if Apple's selling them to, they're targeting students. So school districts, ideally would love to have every student with an iPad, and they made some concessions. They've got some things, the classroom iPad, but even $450 per classroom in a school district is a pretty huge sum when you're talking about technology upgrade. And so I can see school districts integrating a few of these. I can see, at elementary school levels, you having one per classroom, and you're also going to have Chromebooks that are going to be side by side. So one of the things, you're going to have to be able to, the Apple, the iPads are going to run the Google suite of programs, of apps. And the iPad is going to be able to work in both environments. The Google Chrome's only going to be able to work in the Google environment. You're not going to have Pages. You're not going to have Keynote. All the iWork suite. You're not going to have, and so it will take a lot longer for that to become dominant. And school districts will be able to do it if they pass bonds, things like that. They can add technology to it, but it will not be something that's easily integrated. I can tell you that.
No. And again, okay, so the hardware is nice. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. We expect the hardware from Apple to be nice.
Sure.
The price is a fair price, I think, for what it is. And, the question is, will schools buy these in bulk? I don't know. But the bigger issue is if you're trying to attack a market where somebody like Google is already heavily entrenched, right? So the competitor already somewhat owns the market.
Yeah.
They've got so they've got a head start there. They've got a wide range of products at all price points, most of them lower than yours. And they've got a full suite of software that does exactly what administrators needed to do. So even if school districts say we really like this and we'd be willing to pay for it, what's the incentive to switch?
Yeah, there's not much incentive. I mean, so Apple's saying we've got better hardware, and they may provide an easier classroom solution. I mean, so the way that they're going to design classroom management apps, the way they're going to design, students to be able to share, multiple students share a single iPad, all of that stuff will be easy. And I imagine it'll be simple, super user-friendly. It'll work how it's supposed to work. So you can count on all of those things. But is that enough to justify school districts, making huge investments to replace what they've already got? And probably not, because most school districts have, fought and scraped, year by year to get to where they are now, and they may do that again. But it's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight for probably very many school districts at all.
Nope, I don't think so. All right, so moving on here, the next, or number 3 on our list, is iWork updates. And so iWork is the software that includes, I didn't even know they still used the term iWork.
I didn't either.
But
thought that
this would
went
be
away.
What, Pages, Numbers, Keynote, are all of those still considered iWork apps? I'm guessing they are.
Yeah, I think so.
So a new version of iWork that incorporates support for the Apple Pencil. I think this is big news. This is big news for everyone that uses those apps with this upcoming iPad, or if they have an iPad Pro like we do. I use these apps on a regular basis, and having Apple Pencil support makes a ton of sense. So whether this is targeted specifically at the education market or not, I mean, this was a great venue to introduce this feature, and this, I think, will be quite helpful.
It is. And so I know there's been a lot of frustration for people that like Pages. There's a simplicity to Pages. It doesn't do a lot of complex things, but it does simple things really well. And not to have Apple Pencil support when so many other word processing programs have integrated Apple Pencil support. And the chief of those is Microsoft Word. And so Word has always done a really great job from the very beginning of making your Apple Pencil something you can use in that environment. But Apple came out and did something, kind of one-upped the experience you would have with Microsoft Word, which I think will cause some people to go back to Pages. They're calling it a smart annotation. And so you can actually use your Apple Pencil. You can mark up a document. And so whether that's for editing, or if you're a public speaker and you use your iPad and you want to make some hand notes on it, or for whatever reason. But the smart annotation it embeds the marks that you make with your Apple Pencil into the document. So if you circle a word or you underline a word, that circle, that underline, what you do at a certain place travels if you go in and add more text with your keyboard or something like that. So it travels with it. Microsoft Word, you could mark it up, but then if you made changes to your document, your annotations didn't travel with the text you were marking up.
Yeah, this is a nice upgrade. It feels like something that should have been there day one, but at least they finally got around to it. And I will likely try this. I may use Pages a little bit more because, as anybody that listens to the show knows, I use my iPad Pro all the time. I use my pencil every single day. And so if this is something they integrate in, then great. I'm going to give it a whirl. They also announced as part of this update a digital book creation tool that lets teachers and students build books together by adding pictures, handwritten notes, and hand-drawn illustrations. You can now do that on your iPad. Previously, this was only something you could do on a Mac, I believe. So
yeah, that's right.
Really
so
nice.
you did it in iBooks on your Mac, and how it will work in the new iWork suite that just dropped today. It's actually built into Pages, so you can do that from your Pages document. You can create a new book from Pages, and I think it'll have an appeal in the business world. I think for presentations, I think for it'll have all sorts of applications beyond just the school environment. I think that is a great upgrade for Pages, and then ultimately it'll be for Keynote and Numbers. I think it's long overdue, but I think they did it right once it's come out.
Yeah, I did not realize until just now as we were discussing it that was built into Pages. That's pretty incredible. I can see handing my iPad to my 13-year-old daughter and having her go to town. I mean, that's just something that I think she would just jump all over. So I'm going to dig into that one a little bit. I like that a lot. It also says in here, numbers can now be used to create lab reports, and clips will get new kid-friendly filters to encourage them to express themselves digitally. Just what we need. Kids
we need more of that. We do need more of them expressing themselves digitally. All right, so the next one on the list I'll pick up here's classroom management apps. I'm just going to have to take their word for it. I don't even know what it does, but I am sure it's awesome. But the big thing is they announced that student iCloud account, so typically when you sign up with an iCloud account, you get 5 gigabytes of storage space. But they announced today every student that signs up with an iCloud account will get 200 gigabytes of storage by default, which makes me think I need to figure out some way to tell Apple that I'm a student so I don't have to pay the money I pay every month because I've upgraded my storage to 200 gigabytes.
Well, go back to school, man. You can take classes anywhere. Just go say you're a student somewhere.
So surely that will follow on for everybody, but
I don't know about that. We'll see. Well, they lowered their prices on cloud storage a while back, and they're pretty competitive at this point. So I don't really have any problems with their pricing model right now. They got it in line. Google dropped their prices dramatically, maybe a year and a half ago, something like that, and Apple followed suit, and that was very good. And I pay for, I don't know what I pay for. Do I pay for the terabyte? I don't know what I pay for, but I'll like every one of my family, because we're on a family account.
Yeah.
With Apple, so all of our devices are backed up. Multiple computers, iPads, phones, all of those things are all backed up into that one account. And, so I pay for whatever I don't even remember which one.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't have a terabyte.
I'm pretty sure I do. And it's worth it. I think I pay $10 a month. And it is.
Yeah, that seems about right.
It is worth it, in my opinion, to not have to worry about dealing with any of my family's data, right? Like, where did my stuff go? I don't want to deal with that. I've dealt with that before. I've dealt with having to try to recover things on my wife's phone that just disappeared, and somehow that was my fault, and I'm not dealing. I'm just paying the money. I think it's worth it. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. So that is a nice deal. 200 gigabytes of storage now instead of 5. 5 is ridiculous. Can we just say that?
It is.
And if I can back up just a second, you skipped over what the classroom management app was. It's called Schoolwork. So it is a new app
that's right.
for teachers to manage their classrooms digitally. So that allows them, according to our article here, to hand out digital assignments to students, such as homework, activities, and mark due dates on various projects. Apple likened the assignment to writing an email with options to attach PDFs and links to each new project. So that's what the Schoolwork app is. So that's one of those things that we talked about. That's a necessary thing that you have to build. If you want people to use your platform for education, then you've got to build tools that they need. And so that's an example of that. It's not a sexy one, but it is a necessary one.
It is. And what it does is it sets the stage for, I think, truly going to a paperless environment, if you care about that, in our public schools. And so, even down to, 5 years from now, elementary school students, learning to write their letters and write cursive, they'll do that probably on some kind of a tablet experience, and you'll, no more dog ate my homework kind of a deal. All that stuff's digital.
I think we care about saving paper in schools. I mean, just from number one, it's kind of wasteful. You have to buy it, so it's expensive. If you could eliminate that, or at least eliminate some of it, then I'm in favor of that.
Yeah.
All right.
No Big Chief tablets anymore. All right.
All right, the last
one. I'll let you introduce it. I botched the last one.
Well, I don't even know what to say about this one because it's called Everyone Can Create. And I've read this, Ross, so many times, and I still don't understand what it is.
But you can preview it today.
You can preview it today, but I don't know what it is. Okay, so it says, everyone can create, which is essentially bills the new iPad as the ultimate creative classroom tool for students to learn and express themselves. There's been multiple mentions of students expressing themselves. The curriculum focuses on 4 areas: music, video, photography, and drawing. With tools like Clips and GarageBand, Apple is pushing students to make things digitally at a young age. But it doesn't really say anything more than that. Everyone Can Create will be available for preview starting today with a full rollout this summer. Schoolwork, which is the app we mentioned previously, is scheduled to launch in June. I don't know, is this like a collection of apps under one thing called Everyone Can Create? Because GarageBand is its own standalone thing. Clips is its own standalone thing. I don't know what this is.
I have no idea. I guess they're giving you license today to begin creating, Keith. You can go ahead and do that today. No more permission needed. You can preview that today, whatever that means.
Okay, great.
I don't understand it. I'm telling you, I like Verge, but man, this is a home team article. They were reaching for this 5th thing.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I went straight to Apple's website. So you can go look at press releases on the newsroom on Apple's website. And so there's an article that they released today. I'm sure they released a lot, but Apple unveils Everyone Can Create curriculum to spark student creativity. Apple introduces Schoolwork, a powerful new app that personalizes learning. So I wonder if this Everyone Can Create curriculum is inside the Schoolwork app. But then how can you preview one if the other one's not out yet? So Everyone Can Create is a new free curriculum that makes it fun and easy for teachers to integrate drawing, music, filmmaking, or photography. Okay, so that's what it is. So it's curriculum that then you use the apps they were referring to earlier as part of the curriculum. So it's not an app.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of makes sense, but
learning to use the apps.
Basically, how I read this is, let's build you some projects so you get hooked on our apps.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I was surprised about. So they showed kids making videos and doing classwork and all that stuff. I was really surprised with all that it seems Apple's done to make, the ability for anybody to learn how to code. So Swift Playground, all that stuff, that they didn't show any kids programming or making apps or coming to the end of Swift, and this is what I produced. They showed kids making videos, which I think is great, I guess. They didn't show kind of the productivity side, and I was a little disappointed to see. They talked about everybody learning to code and kids learning to code younger and making apps, but they didn't show that. And I think they missed an opportunity to show kids actually, being productive. So I don't know, maybe making a video on gravity is productive, and I'm sure it is. Most of the kids I know couldn't make a video at that level. But the coding, that really seemed like a miss for me. I think they should have highlighted, showing how kids at young age are learning to code. And I think that's incredibly valuable. Yeah,
it is. And to be fair, that's a form of expression as well, right? And creativity. So, I don't know. Clearly, they were targeting this. This felt like being targeted at a much younger education crowd.
Yeah, that's true. All the kids were young. That's right.
So if you look at kind of the examples they gave you and the videos they had, and even some of the references in the articles that they themselves have released, not from other websites, the classrooms that they're showing, it does seem, most of this to me seemed like it was aimed at elementary school aged.
Yeah, they had a couple of elementary school teachers make presentation too.
Right. So, maybe in their mind, the expression and creativity was more important to that audience than coding. Who knows? They didn't leave it out by accident, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's probably true. All right, well, so Keith, that was the Apple event of spring 2017.
2018.
Yeah, 2018, that's right.
It could have been 2017, and it would have been late then, too.
I kind of agree with you, but they're There it is. So it does leave the speculations running wild and anticipations very high for the next Apple event. And so we'll see. We'll see what Apple has, and for the big kids at the next event, right?
I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't either. All right, Keith, what's your blank check this week?
Well, I recently celebrated a birthday.
Yes, that's right. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I got a gift from the family that has been on my list for a while. And I'm sure there was somebody that was hesitant. Well, actually, everyone was hesitant to get me this, and they thought I was kidding, but I was not. And this is the Liftboard electric skateboard. So I am the 40-something-year-old man cruising through my neighborhood on an electric skateboard, and I absolutely love it.
All right, so let me ask. So this is different than the hoverboard. So hoverboards are one thing. The electric skateboard is just what it sounds like. It's a motorized or battery powered skateboard.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a long board, and so there's all different size skateboards, and this one would technically be a long board, and so that just means it's longer than your average skateboard. And I kind of like longboards. The older I get, it's kind of fun just to cruise around on a longboard. And then almost the entire underneath side of it is a battery. And then there is an electric motor attached to one of the wheels. They actually make two different kinds. There's a single motor, then there's a dual motor. I have the single motor, which is perfectly fine because this thing will go up to 16 miles an hour, which is pretty fast on a skateboard.
Oh yeah.
And it has what they claim is a 16-mile range. And of course that depends on how much you weigh and how fast you're going and if you're going up hills and all that kind of stuff. But it is a fantastic device. I actually had a friend that has one of these, and he's had it for months, and I was super jealous, and I've ridden his several times, and I really wanted one, but I didn't want to spend money on one. And so anyway, the family kind of chipped in and got me a skateboard.
Hey, I think that's great. I think a toy for your birthday is always fun. It looks like a fun. So I've got two questions for you. One, do you wear a helmet?
Should I be?
Well, I don't know. So I noticed, I went to the website that you linked, and it does not show anyone's head. It shows them on the board and carrying the board. It does not show their head. So it leads me to believe they did not want to have to commit to people wearing a helmet. Here is my second question. I'm on this website. I go all the way to the bottom picture. I see the skateboard, and then I see what looks like a taser gun. Is that what that is? Is that a?
It's not a taser.
You get a taser?
It's not a taser. Well, let me go back to your first question. You probably should wear a helmet. So far, I've not been wearing a helmet. I've gotten that question several times, and I never noticed on the website. It's like every picture is headless. Although in the background on one of the pictures, it does look like there's somebody in the background riding one of these things, and they do have a helmet.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I think the official answer should be yes, I encourage you to wear a helmet. Okay, so the way that this thing goes, there's different kinds of electric skateboards. This kind has a little remote control, and that's the taser-looking thing that you're looking at there. And so it has a little kind of slider mechanism that you use with your thumb. And as you press in one direction, then you go. And of course, the further you press it, the faster you go. And if you let off, it will just naturally slow down and stop itself. It doesn't have a reverse, thank goodness. You don't want to reverse. But if you pull back on that little thumb mechanism, slider mechanism, then it will start to brake. Right? So it slows you down that way. So you kind of forward to go forward and back to start slowing down, or to slow down and to stop. And then the amount of pressure you apply in either direction would dictate either how fast you're going or how quickly you're going to stop. And it takes a little while to get used to that. There's a feel to it. And then it takes a while for you as the rider to kind of get used to that as it, either kind of starts accelerating fast or slower or whatever. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but I love it. I ride around my neighborhood quite a bit on it. I think it's fantastic. I haven't run out of battery yet. I've charged it every few days or so, and it's one of the funnest things ever. So if you are like me and you like skateboarding, but also like me and old, then this gives you the perfect combination of those two things, because it takes all the work out of having to kind of push a skateboard and lets you just kind of cruise around the neighborhood and get looks from the neighbors.
Well, on the website, it looks very cool. I mean, this looks like an amazing toy. So, yeah, I think that's awesome. What a great blank check this week.
Hey, thanks. So let's talk about yours. So mine is the Liftboard. Yours is similar.
Yes.
What is yours?
Well, it is. Mine's the Lyft service. For a long time, so I don't use it in the city I live in, or I haven't used it. Let me say it that way. It is available in the city that I live in, both Lyft and Uber. But I usually use it when I travel or I'm in a place I don't know, or if I've had to rent a car and I don't want to have to go park a car somewhere. I've always used Uber in the past. This last weekend, my son and I went to a hockey game. We were in another city, a bigger city, checked into a hotel, and then used the Lyft service from the hotel to the venue, and then from the venue back to the hotel after the game was over. And I will tell you, my experience with Lyft, both the app, the user app, although they're very similar, I thought the Lyft app was much better. I thought it gave me more information. I thought the overall experience was great. And the driver that took us back, so the second Lyft driver I had, they were telling me they drive for both Lyft and for Uber, and that Lyft is far better to work for his, from his experience. The drivers get paid more with Lyft, and that their turnaround times are better, that it just seems to be a better experience for the driver, or at least that was his experience. So I'd take him at his word, and it was great. No hiccups. And I'm not saying I ever had any hiccups with Uber, but Uber has certainly been in the news as of late this last year, and certainly some questions about how Uber is run. And I don't know. So I took a shot on Lyft, and I was super pleased with it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I tend to ask every driver I have if they drive for both, and you usually see the stickers, but I've not met one of these drivers that did not work for both. Everyone I've ever met has always worked for both. The answer that I have gotten almost unanimously from every driver is, I prefer Lyft, but I get more rides with Uber. And I'm thinking that may just be like a mind share, market share thing. I was under the impression that Uber paid them more. That could have changed because Uber's kind of like the Facebook of ride sharing, where like give them a chance to make a terrible decision, and man, they'll go all in on it. It's like they just can't help themselves from making these really bad decisions. So it's possible Lyft is maybe capitalized on that and started paying their drivers more. I don't know. It'd be great for drivers. Because that, the way that drivers of ride sharing services are kind of categorized and treated is not the best from what I hear. And I think everybody, should give Lyft a try if they haven't already, just because, it is a good alternative to Uber, and you don't give up anything. I mean, I've taken Lyft plenty of times. I've taken Uber plenty of times. I've never had an issue with either myself. I'll be honest with you, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the price because the pricing kind of is a sliding scale based on demand. So, it's kind of hard to compare those sometimes. But I would, I'd have no problem. On general principle, I'd prefer to take a Lyft, like you mentioned, just because, Uber's kind of just not a great company. And I'd rather support Lyft over Uber if I can. So Lyft kind of recently, they switched their signs. They don't have the giant pink mustaches anymore. Thank goodness. What do they have now? Do they have the little pink signs, little neon things in the window? Yeah,
just a little neon rectangle box. It sits up in the dashboard. And so that's the other thing. It's very easy to see your Lyft driver coming. If you're a block away, you can begin heading towards him. And he's able to track you as you're tracking him. So you can actually, if you see him stuck in traffic or something, you can head towards your driver, and he knows you're coming. So I think that's a great feature in the app.
Well, and if you can't find him, Facebook's also tracking you, so you can just check your Facebook, and it'll tell you where the Lyft driver is, where you are,
That's right.
What the dude had for lunch. And
call Zuckerberg and see if he can get a message to him. That's right. All right. Well, listen, with that, I think we'll close the show, Keith. This has been the discussion of how the technology of today impacts the world of tomorrow. And we thank you for listening. This is Fill in the Blank, and we are proud of our listeners. We thank you for being one of them. Don't forget the Fill in the Blank $1 challenge. Your support goes a long way, and we will see you next week here at Fill in the Blank.